Up next, we have investigative journalist Wyatt Reed. Thanks so much for being here with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much. What an incredible crowd. You know, it's a beautiful thing to see so many people from so many different walks of life unite today to come out and say it's time for Washington to stop prolonging this war in Ukraine. And it's such an honor to speak alongside so many incredible anti-war figures. People like Dennis Kucinich, Ron Paul, people who've been, yeah, let's hear it for them. These are people who've been working to bring an end to endless war since before I was born. And today we're here to make sure our kids don't have to do the same thing tomorrow. The thing about war is that in America, sometimes it can seem so abstract to us, like it could never hit home here. But it can, and it does. You know, I grew up in Southwest Virginia, down the river from the Radford Arsenal, where all the propellants used in American rockets and artillery shells are produced. And every month they burn the explosive waste and they dump that sludge into the New River. So when I grew up, we just got used to the fish in the river with tumors that were bigger than their heads. We got used to our dad's buddies dying in unexplained explosions. We got used to our friends getting thyroid cancer in their late 20s. And it wasn't until I saw this war in Ukraine up close, and I was on the receiving end of these American shells, that we are killing our own people at home to produce, that it came full circle for me. Thank you. When I was asked to speak today, I knew immediately what I wanted to talk about, and that's the time I spent reporting from the Donbass recently. Because for close to a month, I got a chance to see and experience for myself exactly what those people have been going through. And not just since last February, but for 9 whole years. Nearly 15,000 people in these autonomous regions were killed before Russia got directly involved in this war last February. Now, since then, hundreds more civilians have been killed there as the Zelensky regime stepped up its bombing of the Donetsk and Lugansk republics, intentionally targeting civilian areas and residential buildings in what I can only describe as state terrorism. I don't say this lightly, but it's the only conclusion I can draw after seeing the reality on the ground up close. I say that because within 2 hours of arriving in downtown Donetsk, I watched firsthand as my hotel was hit in an artillery strike 100 yards directly in front of me, with what I later found out was a NATO standard 155mm shell launched by Ukrainian militants. I say it because I was able to get access to frontline towns and interview those who survived the occupation of their towns by the hyper-violent nationalists, groups with names like Azov, Adar, Right Sector, groups that were universally acknowledged as Nazis until last year. That's right. Nobody I spoke with who survived their reign of terror described them as liberators. Instead, they used words like fascists, killers, brutes. I say state terror because of Natalia, the 68-year-old babushka I met who was left crippled when the Ukrainian military bombed her apartment with a US-built HIMARS rocket. With no cell service, she told me she looks up at the faded photos of her children on the walls of her ruined apartment and tells them to look at what's become of her life. We asked her what she thought of Americans, knowing we supplied the Ukrainian militants with those bombs. She said, they must be beasts. They must not be human. They must have no heart. And I wished so badly that I could tell her otherwise, but how could I? Well, I'm looking out at this crowd today, and now I think I can. Finally, Americans are uniting to say enough is enough. if you think lives like Natalia's matter too, if you think it's time to put an end to Ukrainian boys and men getting slaughtered after being conscripted at gunpoint, if you think it's time to stop sacrificing hundreds of thousands of lives to try to overthrow the Russian government and send a message to China that it's time to stop the endless escalations towards all-out nuclear war, then it's time to stand up. It's time to stand with the people of the Donbass. Stand with the other Ukrainians too. The Russian speakers in the East who are banned from mainstream media airwaves, who've been systematically silenced and erased since the US-backed coup in 2014. So spread the word. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your member of Congress, stop pouring gas on the fire. Stop sabotaging the peace deals. Not a single penny more for these war criminals. Let's have peace for the people of Donbass. It's time for negotiations, not nuclear weapons. Thank you.